Nebius was up nearly 9% today as we did get more updates and information about that massive Microsoft deal. I also want to take a closer look at a company that's sitting at a 1 billion, yes, 1 billion market cap and has potential to benefit from this AI craze. All that in today's episode, so let's get started.
I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video, and check out fool.com/Jose for the 10 best stocks to buy now. With that link, you get a promotional offer for the subscription service. Now, let's continue with today's episode.
Up nearly 312% year to date. This has been a massive multi-bagger. Congratulations to all long-term investors. Now, I only have a small position in the stock, roughly $15,000 to $16,000, and my average price point is around 68, 69. I am very bullish for this overall market, right? For the overall AI infrastructure build out. But you guys know me, my main player is CoreWeave in this space. But what is driving this massive return today? So right now we continue to see this excitement for the AI story. But today we heard a lot more updates and more details about that massive, nearly $20 billion deal that Nebius has with Microsoft. So based on reports, according to people familiar with the situation, Nebius partnership with Microsoft was for Microsoft's internal large language models and internal consumer AI assistant. Now, some might say, Jose, shouldn't this have been known? And I would say no. Usually when Microsoft signs something, it could also be part of OpenAI's expansion, right? But hearing that this is mainly for Microsoft internal side, it, in my opinion, built a little bit more credibility for Nebius, right? And a little bit more safety net. It's not OpenAI that's renting this through Microsoft. Is Microsoft based on their internal research, internal consumer AI assistants that's going to be renting this. And that has, in my opinion, a way fatter and more improved balance sheet than OpenAI independently. Now, another part of what we learned is this is going to be a massive data center infrastructure of more than 100,000 NVIDIA's GB300 chips. GB300 is getting crazy demand. This is the Grace Blackwell Ultra. We heard that one's already ramping up. We know that demand for Blackwell is off the chains. And to be able to see, right, someone building a 100,000 cluster, we know all the other players are doing that as well. So I do see this as a very bullish sentiment for, obviously, my AI company, NVIDIA. Now, moving off to Nebius, right, that was the main story. Amit, my good pal here, Amit, he did post on X. I don't know if he has it on his YouTube channel, but he sat down with the CEO of Galaxy Digital, and they had about a 30-minute interview. Now, even if you're not a shareholder of Galaxy Digital, and they are kind of like, it seems, I don't understand the company. They're more in the crypto mining, it seems, but they are expanding right into the AI infrastructure, what we're seeing with a lot of crypto miners. So even if you don't have Galaxy Digital, I do believe this interview is important because it gives you a kind of a first-person view of someone that's dealing with this data center build out, and someone outside of Jensen, right? Obviously, we can be ultimately bullish with Jensen, but someone outside of that, right? So I didn't watch the first 10 minutes because they focus a lot on cryptos. I focused more on after that 10-minute mark with the data centers, the AI bubble, the energy for data centers, and some of the rapid fires. So if you are kind of a shareholder of Iron, of maybe Applied Digital, of course, of Cypher, all these players, I do believe this gives you a great insight of how that market is moving right now. Now, next, I want to talk about that individual company. And this is going to be WhiteFiber, ticker WYFI. Now, I'm going to say this is not a buy recommendations. I never do buy recommendations or anything in this channel. I just want to do a bit of a deep dive on it. This is a company I actually covered about a month or two ago on my 15 secret AI stocks. And it was all filled with co-location and crypto mining companies turning to AI high performance computing. WhiteFiber was one of them. Now, I am going to say I do have a small position here. I have roughly, I think, $7,000, nothing to my overall portfolio, but my cost base is I think like 18, 19. Market cap of $1.27 billion. So I want to bring information because I get a lot of comments here where, Jose, you talk about the same companies, NVIDIA, CoreWeave, Marvell. What's something new? So I'm going to try my best to at least every week bring one new company. So here's WhiteFiber. So WhiteFiber, total revenue of $18.7 million. They have in two revenue segments. They have cloud service revenue, which is AI GPUs rental, and that's roughly 80% of total revenue. The second is co-location, which is 1.7 million, a little bit less than 10%. So roughly 90 actually comes from the AI cloud. Roughly 10 comes from co-location. Both have very similar gross margins, which I was a little bit shocked. Usually you would expect cloud service revenue to have higher gross margins than co-location, but maybe that might shift over time. Now, some recent announcements. I want to say there's two major announcements, at least in my opinion. First is the IPO. IPO happened on August 8th with $70 share price, and they raised about $183 million. Now, the biggest shareholder of WhiteFiber is the company they kind of split off from, and that's Bit Digital, ticker BTBT, which owns about roughly 71.5% of WhiteFiber. Now, Bit Digital is a company that focuses on crypto mining, mainly Ethereum. Now, I am also going to say I have a small position in Bit Digital due to this overall craze of Ethereum. I think I have roughly 12, 13,000 there. Again, very small position in my overall portfolio. Now, they split up because Bit Digital is going to focus more on that crypto mining story and the digital currency story, while WhiteFiber is going to focus more on the high performance computing story. Now, the second big story after the IPO is during the second quarter, they acquired a 1 million square foot data center in North Carolina, and pre-construction have commenced for the initial 24 megawatt phase, which remained on track for the completion in the first quarter of 2026. So this acquisition and this data center can actually go to nearly 100 megawatts of gross power, and that could be massive revenue growth. Because as we're going to see, this 18.7 million or the 16.6 that they did in cloud service revenue pretty much only came from 5 megawatts. Now, this system can actually 5x that, so you can see revenue potentials grow from here. Now, here's their data center portfolio. So they have MTL1, and this is about 4 gross megawatts, and this is where most of the revenue is coming from that AI GPU, right? That about 3 megawatts of IT load. Now, in quarter four of 2025, they're going to stand up 2 new solutions, another 3 megawatts here, MTL2, and that's going to be, again, very WhiteFiber cloud, which is going to be AI GPUs, and then Cerebras System, which is kind of an ASIC player in AI development, AI chips. They develop their own AI chip, and they're doing kind of co-location here. So they're in quarter four of 2025. If everything is on schedule, they're going to be able to grow their revenue at, in theory, over 100% compared to quarter one. Now, the one that gets me the most excited is obviously the North Carolina one, which has 99 gross megawatts, and they have roughly 20 megawatts of IT expected in quarter one of 2026. Now, there are risks that come with this company. Obviously, I talked about the bullish stuff. Let me talk about the risk, and then I'll go talk a little bit more about some bullish stuff. So first, capital requirements. They did mention that for this North Carolina one project, to really be a full load of 99 gross megawatts, which is probably somewhere around 75 IT load, they need about $1 billion, over $1 billion. They only raised $183 million from IPO. Just like any other AI infrastructure company, they're going to be heavily in debt, right? They're going to be in debt, and this creates the risk of dilution and debt risk. The second thing is obviously power capacity, right? Power capacity is definitely a limiting factor. They do have contracts, but because equipment talent is short as well, any hiccups here could create some negative sentiments toward the stock. Now, WhiteFiber at a glance kind of gave us a footprint of future potential power. So right now, like we saw, most of it is running MTL 1, 2, and 3. And that's very small compared to the North Carolina acquisition. North Carolina acquisition is going to be intense. Now, they also mentioned that pipeline is around 1.3 gigawatts. Now, this is going to be another yellow flag, right? If you just look at the slide, you think, oh, wow, they have the potential to grow dramatically. This 1.3 gigawatts of pipeline are just sites that are for sale right now and under evaluation by management. There's no guarantee that they're going to get 1.3 gigawatts. They might get 100 megawatts. They might get no megawatts. So I didn't like that fishiness, but right now the overall ecosystem has the excitement for these overall trends. Now, this is the overall excitement of the market, right? You kind of have researchers from McKinsey and company saying that global data center demand is expected to grow roughly 30% compounded annual growth rate to roughly 300 gigawatts of power needed by 2030, where right now we're roughly, in 2024 was roughly 60 gigawatts. The market size is expected to grow roughly $363 billion in generative AI investments by 2030, where in 2024 it was roughly 60 billion. Now, I don't take these numbers to true value. What I do take is that the market is expecting growth rates for the foreseeable future and obviously can be a bullish sentiment for my AI investments. Now, here's a better kind of story for the data center capacity. We can see quarter two, which just passed, and quarter three, you don't see much growth in data center capacity growth. But in the fourth quarter of 2025, you start to see it grow almost quadruple, right? Nearly, that is a quadruple from 4 megawatts to 16. That's a 4x. Then in the first quarter of 2026, almost 10xing from where it's at right now. In theory, you can see if you're 10xing your megawatts, shouldn't you be nearly 10xing your revenue as well? So that's the growth potential for this company right now. And then you see from even fourth quarter of 2026, you see even more and more potential. That is the excitement for this stock right now. They even mentioned that their North Carolina, which is now their flagship, this is the crucial one, they're not longer waiting for one customer. There are multiple customers that are interested and they all understand that they need to move quickly. Now, I talked a lot about some of the risk, right? I mentioned capital requirement and power availability risk. My other risk, in my opinion, is one that many people don't see as a risk, but they don't have a crazy system, right? They don't have a crazy data center. Your big players like Microsoft, like Meta, like all these, they're signing huge deals. So for me, these are so small megawatt data centers, maybe in full, the full North Carolina at 100 megawatt gross could potentially have one big customer. But if you're really doing these small 20 megawatts, I think the chances, it's not impossible, but the chances of a big player coming to rent you out is a little bit lower. That's why I enjoy my CoreWeave, right? My CoreWeave is the baby. It's the NVIDIA's baby, right? It's the beast that can grow massive AI infrastructure at scale. This is cool, but this is also one of the bearish reasons. So you might say, Jose, if this is a bearish reason, why do you have a position here? Like I mentioned, very small position. And I think the trend has the potential of creating some returns here. But it's not my first choice. It's not my second choice. Like I said, I have CoreWeave, then I have Nebius, then I even have some other players like this. Now, overall conclusion, WhiteFiber offers leverage exposure to the AI infrastructure boom, but it is a high risk, a high reward play, entirely dependent on flawless execution. Any slip ups anywhere, especially with that North Carolina one data center, could create massive sell off. This is also a company that's going to be doing a lot of dilution, building up debt, and that's something to be prepared of. Again, this is not a buy recommendation. It was just a quick 101 on this company if you want more ideas. Though you guys, the viewers, have said, Jose, you're talking so much about the same, so I'm going to try at least to bring a few new companies every so often. Take care, have a good day, and see you all next time.